guest for this episode of To My Way of Thinking. Today, we're talking with Dr. Omega Allen. Some of you may have know her from her construction business. Others may know her from her political forays. We're going to talk a bit about that and both. Good day, Omega. How you doing?
Hi, how are you today, Fred? Thank you so much for having me.
I'm good to go. Now, in full disclosure here, Omega and I have known each other for quite some time. We're high school classmates going all the way back to really almost elementary school. Right?
No, not almost. No. It was elementary. Susie E. Talbert.
That's right. Omega, I knew her as Eldry, and she went off to, when she left high school and went off to college, she was one of the group that went to Atlanta to find their fortune. And she went off to Atlanta. I knew her as Eldry, but when you came back from Atlanta, there was this Omega person that I had to figure out who you were.
Well, Eldry came back, but when I came back, I was a hair designer, and my middle name, Omega, was a good stage name. I was a platform artist and all of that. So it was a good stage name. It was good for the industry that I was in. And so I kept it.
Oh, okay. Now, So where did now all of your introductions throughout everything right now comes with the word doctor, the title doctor in front.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about Dr. Omega.
Well, I have a PhD in public administration with a focus on municipal government from North Central University in Prescott Valley, Arizona.
Mm-hmm. All right. Why that? Why did you decide to pursue that?
Initially, I thought I was going to do it in some area in construction, but I felt this tugging, this calling to make a difference in Jacksonville and the way that our government was running. And it just kind of morphed into that. And the next thing I know, I was registered for public admin with municipal government and just followed it through. And it's been exciting.
So you've worked in government service over the years?
Well, the only time that I have, I served as the chair to the Northwest Jacksonville Economic Development Advisory Committee for about 10 years here in Jacksonville. And I served as the program manager for the Neighborhood Stabilization Program here in Jacksonville. That's the extent of working in city government that I have.
All right. So how do we move from hair design to construction work?
I always tell people, I'm still making things beautiful, just a different medium. I went from keratin and protein to sticks and bricks. Just the creativity. I'm still an artist. I like to see the works of my hand, my thoughts and my creativity come to life and help people at the same time. So that's kind of how I ended up there.
Now, when folks read the word construction, they think bricks and mortar. They think of you standing at a construction site with your helmet on and giving direction. Again, I think you've touched on a bit of it there, but what exactly does your company do? Is it mainly just design, build, or what do you guys do?
Well, I do building. What you just described is what I do. I have a designer hard hat and I stand on site overseeing and supervising my own jobs. I specialize in basically all construction except marine. I don't do any marine construction, but I'm a general contractor, which gives me a license to build anything from a doghouse to a TIA tower.
Now, African Americans in the construction trades have had a long history, sometimes good, sometimes bad. And over the years, they've also had to try to benefit from, set-aside operations and that sort of thing. Have you found that set-asides have been a benefit to your business, or partnerships have been more of a benefit to your business?
Well, partnerships, and we don't have any set-asides anymore, as they call them, set-asides. We have now the JSEB organization here in Jacksonville, and I am a JSEB contractor. And basically that's just to make sure that you have gone through some sort of certification with the city to make you eligible to bid on different jobs. And it also puts you in position for those who operate as a prime to, there is usually not a mandate, but a suggestion, if you will, of a certain percentage of JSEB participation. And with that, then the prime has to offer and have on board a JSEB before they can actually bid and receive a contract.
Now, have you found that the construction, as you look around Jacksonville, something is always being built. Roads are constantly being torn up and put back in place. I'm sure as soon as they finish widening the road up there on, what is that, the Fulham Warren Bridge, and putting in whatever lanes they're going to put in to get us over the Riverside Avenue and get the Riverside folks onto that, there'll be something else they'll come up with. Have you found your ability, are you involved in very much of that, or do you see very much minority participation in the number of construction contracts that are taking place just within the roadway system?
Well, what I have found is DOT has not been a friendly sort for me. When I took all of these trainings for DOT to become what I thought was being DOT certified, then only to find out that you must have had some experience in DOT before you can get. And my question was, well, then how do I get the experience if you don't give me the opportunity to get the experience? Then they say, well, then you have to get with some of the primes. And our European counterparts got it sewed up. They're not looking, they don't have to use me, and they choose not to. Well, so it's difficult for the African American to get in. That's been my experience.
Well, that's what kind of begs the question here. I mean, we've got all this construction going on. We don't have set-asides anymore, so nobody can get a hold of that. The construction trade folks sued to make sure we got rid of that. So it is all about partnerships in this, but I got to be honest with you, with the exception of seeing a lot of minorities holding the flags that says slow and stop. I don't see a whole lot of them actually involved in these construction contracts. Have you? And you're telling me that that the partnership part of it, as far as you've been able to see, is not as successful as it once was. Do we have very many minority-owned contractors in Duval County to take?
We have quite a few minority. I'm sorry, say that last part again.
Well, those that would be able to take advantage of getting a contract.
I don't actually know how many are positioned to do so. All I know is that those with whom I've spoken, when they do try, they end up with the same story that I have, unfortunately. And until we figure out a way to get around that or fix that problem, we won't be able to get any of the prime work.
So you're saying that you can't, it's not just about bidding on a contract, who has the lower price for getting a job done. You're saying it's about bidding and experience?
Well, yeah, let me put it this way. At one point, and this was not a DOT job, but at one point with a fairly large project here in Jacksonville, I actually won the bid, but the job was not given to me. I took it to the ombudsman, I complained about it, and I was told that, well, City Council actually, when they were doing the stadium, City Council ruled that the lowest bid was not necessary anymore. They could actually select whomever. I was like, then what's the bidding process for? Then just give it to your boys and be done with it. Why are you sending people through these changes? So I don't know. We've got a lot of work to do still.
Among your resume items is that you have been a business training coordinator for the ex-offender program at the Jacksonville Urban League.
Yes.
You still involved in that? And if so, tell us about it. What's that
No, that's been a lot of years ago. We had an ex-offender program it was a youth ex-offender program. And we identified at-risk, they didn't call them that then, but at-risk youth. And we put together LaFord Tobias was the program director, and we put together a co-op store. And that co-op store was at 48th and Main, in that strip mall that used to have the Salvation Army in it. And we taught them how to own and operate a business, everything from inventory to control to actually managing and the finances and all of that, ordering, all of those things. And it was quite successful.
Okay. So what are the main community activities that you're involved in now? Top three.
Well, I am a member of the Rotary Club, and we have a new club. Our club is the Northwest Rotary Club of Jacksonville, and we are concentrating our efforts on the neighborhoods, the children, and the families of those in Northwest Jacksonville. Our club has partnered with Northwestern Legends Elementary, that used to be Northwestern Senior High, then Northwestern Junior High. It is now Northwestern's Legend Elementary School, and that's our pet project. That's our flagship project, I would say.
Okay.
So that's what I do mostly right now.
All right. So what led you to get involved in politics? For many folks, that was how you came on the scene with them, especially throughout Duval County in particular. Why did you get involved in politics of all things?
When you're dissatisfied with what you see happening, and if you feel like you have something to offer, our system is set up that the average person can, should, and could throw their hats into the ring to become whatever office you're running for. And when I see, and what I saw and still see happening in Jacksonville, the change is so far from coming to fruition. Fred, when I came back home, I was excited. And when I looked around, I said, Jacksonville has gone 10 years in the wrong direction. And it's been steady traveling in that direction ever since. And that was back in 19.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Look around you. We have our school system. Right now, we've gotten to the point that we have what I consider food deserts in, not food deserts, but we have food deserts as well. We have educational deserts in North Jacksonville. They're constantly closing down our schools. Our babies are having to be bused to other areas. We've got, things are just going in the wrong direction. We have progress in one area of town continually and decline in another continually. South side is continually going up, north side is continually going down, and those things should not be.
Now, you this is not your first foray at looking at the top spot, so to speak, going for mayor's office, but you don't think that you could have made some progress on the district level in correcting some of this by using your considerable talents on the district level to attract businesses to these food deserts, which is a major issue in zip codes 7, 8, 7, 9, and 10 in particular. So you don't think you could have made as much of an impact in trying to draw businesses to those districts as you can at the top spot, the mayor's spot?
Probably not, by virtue of the fact that the number of people that you have to get on your side to get something done within the council, I'm not sure I would have been able to make the impact that I would. There's a lot of compromise, and I understand you must sometimes compromise to get the things that you need and want done, but there's no guarantee that once you compromise to help someone else, you're not sure it's going to be reciprocated. So the way I see it is, good leadership starts at the top and trickles down. And we have not had that consistently in Jacksonville.
Now, with the exception, the century-old exception of Alvin Brown getting elected, now some 12 years ago, believe it or not, since he got elected, because we've gone through nearly 8 years of the present administration. Alvin only got to serve 4, so roughly about 12 years ago. And of course, the successful election of Nat Glover to sheriff. He made an unsuccessful run after 8 years of sheriff to attempt to be mayor. But that's about it for African Americans at the top spot. County-wide, we've had a great deal of success. Well, I'll say a great deal of success. We've had some success with African Americans on getting elected on the county-wide level in the at-large system. As we speak right now, 2 African American males have the 2 top spots on the city council as council president and vice president, and looks like the one will succeed the other as president in the coming year if tradition holds. But aside from that, there's just not that much success in countywide seats for African Americans. What makes you think this is going to be any different?
I think the people are tired of the same old status quo. And, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And in Jacksonville, nothing has changed for the people of Jacksonville in decades. And as I speak with people around the county, both African American and European Americans, people they're just tired of it. They're tired of the good old boy system. They're tired of things that are promised that are not trickling down to our tables. They're tired of partisan politics that are failing us continually. And so I think it's our time. And when I say our time, I don't mean just Black people, but I mean our time for the people of Jacksonville. It is indeed our time for our voices to be heard, because government is supposed to be for and by the people. That's not happening. The only way that happens is if the people of Jacksonville are allowed to have input in the decision-making processes for those things that govern their lives. And that's not happening with us. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
My background, my dissertation was on participatory government and participatory budgeting. And when I look around the nation and see those cities, large cities that have included the citizens in those decision-making processes and making leaps and bounds in satisfaction for the citizens and progress for the citizens of those cities, I'm like, why not us?
Well, is that as a result of the consolidated government that we have? Because we've got a lot of vast needs. The needs at the beaches are different from the needs over in Baldwin, from the needs down in Mandarin, from the needs certainly on the Northwest corridor. And now we just have a pure North side issue. So the needs are different in a vast county with a consolidated government. Would we have been better off if we had not consolidated?
Well, I think we'd have been okay if those things that were promised to our community were delivered. We may have been okay with it, but since we are here, my plan would be to look at the city I have a 4-year plan. Hopefully I would get 8, but I have a 4-year plan that take each of the areas of the city, chop them up, north, south, east, and west. And, the beaches will fall into and Baldwin will fall into those particular areas. Take those areas, and each year, starting with the one that has been neglected the most, and that is in most dire straits, take the most pressing issue from that area and work on that the next year and get that solved. The next year, take the next one. And then progressively, you've gotten every area of the town, every area of our city has been covered. And while you can't do everything and you can't solve all of the issues at one time, but I'm hoping to start something in Jacksonville that subsequent administrations won't feel the need to eradicate everything that I've done, but rather build on it, which is the way progress actually happens. And in Jacksonville, it hasn't been going that way. People have not been putting in position things that can be built upon. And as a result, here we are spinning our wheels, going nowhere fast.
Both parties have had a good shot at getting Jacksonville right. Back in the 60s before consolidation, in the early 20 years or so of consolidation, the Democrats were pretty much in charge. And then things changed, I guess, about the 90s after then State Attorney Ed Austin was elected to become Mayor Ed Austin. And within months of his becoming mayor, he switched from the Democrat to the Republican Party. And all of his aides after that switched with him. John Delaney, Audrey Moran, et al., all of them switched with him. And we've pretty much had a Republican dominated government, as I said, for the last 30 years, with the exception of Alvin Brown being able to sneak in there, and even he governed to the right. Now, you came on the radar as a Republican. Why did you do that?
Well, you know, when I registered to vote, I registered as a Republican. The reason for that was all the information, all the intel that I had gathered was that the Republican Party was a rich party with a lot of potential, with very little African-American representation. And the only reason, you know, from what I gathered, was the only reason we weren't party to any of it was because we did not belong to the party. So I said, well, you can't affect change from the outside. Let me see if I can get into it and affect change for not just Black people, but for the unity of our city that way. Didn't pan out to be that way. I've been a member of both parties. And right. I've seen the man behind the curtain in both. And I decided I want no part of it. I want no part of it. The parties have failed us. They failed us miserably. They're so fragmented right now, and there's no clear direction for the people that they're supposed to be representing. Everything I hear, I've gone to meetings, and everything I hear is the party. Everything is for the progress and the progression of the party. And my question is, what about the people that the party is supposed to be representing? You never hear anything about the people. It's all about the party. And government is supposed to be for and by the people, not for and by the party. Parties are designed to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to provide unity and strength for like-minded people, not to dictate how government is run.
Well, each party has its own philosophy, and obviously the Republican Party has a philosophy that these days tends to lean rather hard right, whereas the Democrats are still struggling to determine if they want to lean hard left, now the term is called progressive, or whether they want to moderate themselves to attract more voters. So where are you in this process? You're running now as NPA, non-party affiliate. I believe that's what it is.
That's exactly what it is.
So where are you in this, and how what kind of data do you have to back up that that's a good choice in order to get elected?
We have around 69,000 NPA voters in Jacksonville. So that's enough to get anybody elected, actually. If you can rally the NPA, see, NPA is a choice. It's not a party. It's the freedom and the choice to vet both sides and see what works best for what concerns you. And that's where the strength of the NPA voter lies. You're not taken for granted by either of them. The Democrats expect, well, both parties, they expect that when their candidates are in, you are automatically going to vote that way. The NPA has to be convinced that you're worthy of my vote. And that's what everybody should be. That's the mindset that every citizen should have, rather than just voting party lines for when are we going to stop that? When are we going to stop voting party lines and following the one who raised the most money and doing things like that? Then you have to ask yourself, well, how did that work out for you? Just to be able to say, I voted for the person who won. How has that been working for you? Not been working well from where I sit. And for the African Americans, particularly that I talk to, it hasn't worked well for us at all. So we've got to get to the point that the change, the catalyst for change lies with the voter. The voter has got to take a very serious look at the way we elect our officials.
Well, that 160,000 plus number of NPA voters is quite impressive because even, and this will be a local election apart from the midterm elections that the state and national will be taking place. This will be very much a local election for next spring. So we're still only looking at maybe about 20%. We may be able to get 25% voter turnout for this local election. How much do you see data that leads you to believe that you'll be able to get at least 80% of the NPA voters that show up, and then get some more votes off of those party affiliated candidates? Or do you have data that leads you to believe that this can really happen?
I don't have any data. I got a lot of faith, but I don't have any actual data that says that. You know, we've had low voter turnouts, but now I don't think I agree with you on the low voter turnout with this one, simply because of the sheriff's race. We have so many people vying for the sheriff's race. I believe people are going to show up for that.
Well, at best with that, I mean, we've had that. I mean, yes, it is an open seat, as is the mayor's seat. Both of them are open, and we'll have a number of open city council races. But even with that, on the local level, we've still struggled to break 30%, and 25%, especially if we don't have some controversy going on. And all of the candidates at this point, especially those who started a year out, like yourself, they're trying to do everything they can to make sure that there's no controversy, except for who's going to be the first one to nationalize the race, as they did in the recent at-large city council race between the Republican and the Democrat. That there was an attempt to nationalize that local race. So what are you looking to do? What's going to be different this time for you in order to make sure that Dr. Allen is at top of mind the closer you get up on this race? Because money is going to be a big deal. It always is. What's going to be the things you need to do to get top of mind here?
I've got a strategy to get my message out. Of course, it's always about getting your message out. Yeah. And getting your message out happens in a lot of different ways. That's why I'm out so early this time. If you recall, all the times before, I got out late, and I think did fairly well to have only gotten out at the last time 1 or 2 weeks prior to qualifying. So this time around, I think the time frame will give me an opportunity to visit areas, to talk to people, to meet and greet people, to actually, so that people know that I'm there. And I think that in itself, when I'm able to give my message to people that I have a plan, because change, it's one thing to throw the word change around. We need a change. We need a change. Yeah, of course, we do need a change, but change only comes with a definitive plan that can actually produce change. And I think that getting my message out is going to be what changes everything for me.
Well, there's no question about it. The money is being raised by both of the named candidates at this point, or at least one of the named candidates at this point. And in the sheriff's race, there's a great deal of money being moved around and raised. That sheriff's race will probably be somewhere in excess of $10, $15 million before it's all over, between the top 3 candidates. But one thing we did learn, and we've learned this before, and we learned this again with the recent at-large city council race, is that money doesn't vote in the end, people do.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't appear to be that money, despite all the messaging that was out there, it did come down to more turnout, getting your people to the polls to vote for you than they did before. Now, again, I know you're NPA, but one of the things we saw is that the Republican Party has been, while the Democrats have been successful in getting their folks to mail in their ballots and vote early, what happens is that on the Republican side of the fence, they've been able to get a election day turnout that changes things considerably, and that is what's being credited with getting the recent candidate elected on the Republican side. What are you working on mechanisms that will help you with turnout?
Yes.
For those, again, first for all those NPAs you got, and again to snip off some of those undecided Democrats and Republicans.
Well, if you recall, the last mayoral race, the Democrats didn't bother to put a candidate in the race.
They had no faith. They had no faith that they could do anything with it after the failure of Alvin Brown, and there just wasn't a candidate on the horizon that they had any faith in that could win it at large race. That's why, and that's the thing that I think that's why the Democrats are putting so much onus on the candidate from out the beach to run at large, because they figured that she has a better chance to run in the mayor's race than she had to run out there in that congressional race where she really had no business running in the first place. She's thinking name recognition will do it. But what do you say?
Again, it's about, it appears to me to be about name recognition that they're basing it on. So I guess my question is that where their faith is the fact that you have name recognition from newscasting? I don't know.
Well, people do vote for who they know and who they like. They start there. And as we stand here today, again, we've got three former newscasters, former broadcasters in the race. Ken Amero retired from Channel 12 not too long before we started this broadcast. He's going to run for an Arlington District Seat 1. He'll be taking over a seat from Joyce Morgan, who was a former television anchor person who's held it for 2 terms. I'm not sure what she's going to run for next, but she's term limited on city council. And of course, we've got Donna Deegan out of the beach, and that's not new. We had Ernie Mastriani, who was a former city council, a former newscaster at Channel 4. He ran for property appraiser. And of course, we had Harry Reagan, who's general manager at Channel 4 for a long time. He ran for city council and held that for a couple of terms. So name recognition is a big deal, but it's not the end all. It didn't work out for Donna Deegan last time. There's no guarantee it's gonna work out this time either.
Well, I've been able to garner name recognition. As you know, this is, as you've already said, this is not my first rodeo here. So I run into people who all the time, I voted for you. And then I run into people who did not have a clue. And that's because a lot of times we're just not really paying attention, and we just kind of robotically vote, just go down the list. And I've had people tell me, I don't even know the people, and I'll just go down my party list. And I caution them about that. And I ask that for those of you who are watching, please vote based on the people, the merit of the people and their conversation and their message to you that resonates with the things that you need to see happen in your community. This is not a popularity contest. I know that's how it works a lot of times, but this is not a popularity contest. We're at a crossroads, and we've got to make a difference. And we've got to make the change. And as I said, the catalyst for change is with you, the voter.
Let's go to the top 3 things that Dr. Omega Allen is interesting and is bringing to the electorate. What are the top 3 things that you're bringing to the electorate?
I'm all about justice. And when I say justice, I'm not talking justice, legal justice. I'm talking justice, social and economic justice, equitable governing for the people of Jacksonville. And a lot of times people don't understand the difference between equity and equal, equity being giving what's needed, where it's needed, when it's needed, as opposed to equal, meaning giving everybody the same amount, whether you need it or not. That is the strong thing that I bring with me, is making sure that what's needed in Jacksonville is produced by City Hall, that making sure that what the people need, the people get. I think when we start there, the rest of it just falls into place.
Excellent. Dr. Omega Allen, and again, she's a Raines graduate. For you folks who didn't know, if you don't know very much about Raines, we're going to probably do a full show on that alone to get everybody educated. But she's a Raines graduate, class of 71.
Yes.
And we're so proud of you and all you've accomplished, and we're certainly wishing you well in this latest endeavor.
Thank you so much. Thank you again for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, we will. And this is just one conversation. The closer we get to it, we're going to have some more. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's going to do it for today's edition of our conversation. Next up, Fred's Reviews, our movie of the week. This week's review is Dune Part One. Came out in 2021. I give this 7 of 10 stars.
My planet Arrakis is so beautiful when the sun is low. Rolling over the sands, you can see spice in the air. The outsiders ravage our lands in front of our eyes. Their cruelty to my people is all I've known. What's to become of our world?
While an interesting cinematic display of modern computer-generated graphics and landscape masking Arabian deserts, Dune Part One will lose anyone not familiar with the Frank Herbert novel and cause anyone who has seen the one-of-a-kind 1984 epic done by author Frank Herbert and director David Lynch. They somehow managed to tell the story in one setting rather than expect the viewer to come back for more in, say, a year's time. The producers of the 2021 Dune, as with the 1984 Dune producers, placed the weight of the story squarely on the shoulders of a fairly unknown actor. In 1984, it was Kyle MacLachlan. In 2021, it's Timothée Chalamet. There had to be an assumption among the producers and writers of this version that viewers had actually read the Herbert novel. This slow-moving first installment does nothing to encourage anyone to plunk down another $15 at the movie theater on characters with few redeeming qualities other than birthright, taking something that isn't theirs, and pure savagery for the sake of savagery. Despite the novelty appearances of ex-wrestler Dave Bautista and supporting cast members Jason Momoa, Josh Brolin, and Charlotte Rampling, if you can pick her out, this episode is a rather bland telling of a pretty good futuristic sci-fi novel that tinkers with who is the next messiah for this interstellar realm. The 1984 Dune got it done with outstanding performances by Brad Dourif, Linda Hunt, Franny Jones, Virginia Madsen, and Kenneth McMillan, with one of the most disgusting performances of his career as the evil Baron Harkonnen. And did I mention the cameo performance of rock singer Sting? No, this 2021 version deserves to be exactly where it started out, as seen on TV. That's it for this edition of To My Way of Thinking. See you next time.